We share nearly 99% of our DNA with chimpanzees, yet one branch of that primate family tree remained in the forest canopy, while the other began splitting the atom and building rockets to leave the planet. The traditional explanation for this divergence was a matter of timing. The theory held that when the last ice age ended, a warming climate allowed nomadic groups to settle and begin farming. This transition created the food surplus necessary to support the specialized labor required for civilization. However, recent excavations have found evidence that conflicts with this linear timeline. The sequence we've relied on for decades is being replaced by a more complex reality. Instead of a sudden leap, our trajectory was shaped by a multi-million-year feedback loop. Physical mutations enabled technological inventions, which in turn placed new pressures on our ancestors that further altered our biological makeup. To understand how we became a dominant species, we have to look past the structures our ancestors built and observe how the act of building those things modified human biology. Between 6 and 4 million years ago, climate change began fragmenting Africa's dense forests into open grasslands. This shift forced our ancestors into a new environment where survival required different mechanics. Living in tall grass favored individuals who could stand on two legs to scan for predators. This move toward bipedalism was the first major catalyst because it permanently removed the burden of walking from the hands. Roughly 2.8 million years ago, Homo habilis used those freed hands to begin striking river pebbles together. They weren't just picking up rocks, they were fracturing them to create sharp cutting edges. Producing even a simple Mode 1 tool requires the ability to look at a blunt stone and visualize the sharp flake trapped inside it. Striking the rock at the correct angle to release that flake represents the first evidence of human planning in the archaeological record. Hominids who manufactured these edges had better access to protein and marrow, creating a selective advantage. This locked in a loop where those with the dexterity and brain volume to make tools survived more often, passing those traits to the next generation. But growing a larger brain presents a biological energy crisis. The human brain consumes 20% of the body's total energy, an investment that is difficult to sustain on a standard primate diet of raw plants. While early tools allowed for meat processing, it was the control of fire by Homo erectus that changed our anatomy. Fire allowed humans to cook their food, which effectively pre-digest it before it is consumed. Because cooked food is easier to process, humans no longer needed the massive, energy-draining digestive systems found in other primates. This freed up a significant portion of the body's energy budget. This chart illustrates the trade-off defining our genus. As digestive tracts shrank, surplus energy powered a rise in cranial capacity. These larger brains produced Mode 2 Acheulean tools. Unlike earlier flakes, these required symmetrical design and multi-step manufacturing, indicating more sophisticated thought. With the combination of calorie-dense food and better tools, humans migrated out of Africa. They moved across Eurasia, encountering and occasionally interbreeding with evolutionary cousins like the Neanderthals. By roughly 300,000 years ago, this feedback loop between diet and technology had finalized the biological hardware of the anatomically modern human brain. Around 50,000 years ago, the physical evolution of the human body reached a plateau, but our behavioral output changed. We find the first evidence of representational cave arc in bone flutes tuned to musical scales, markers of a species processing the world through symbols. In modern-day Turkey, a site dating back 11,600 years contradicts our understanding of how these societies began. It is called Göbekli Tepe. Moving these stones required a coordination effort that did not exist anywhere else on Earth. Builders quarried and transported limestone pillars, weighing up to 16 tons, then chiseled their surfaces with high-relief carvings of scorpions, lions, and boars. Despite the scale of the construction, researchers have found no evidence of permanent houses, hearths, or domestic water sources. This religious center was built entirely by nomadic hunter-gatherers. This site removes agriculture as the prerequisite for monumental construction. It suggests that the social organization required for organized worship existed long before the first seeds were planted in the region. The current consensus is that the temple came first. Gathering a massive workforce to build these stone rings created a sudden, local demand for food that foraging could not meet. To feed the people working at Göbekli Tepe, humans were forced to domesticate the wild grains growing on the nearby hillsides. Human evolution follows a loop where the mind drives the biology. The sharp stone edges we chipped from river pebbles allowed for the caloric intake that grew our brains, eventually enabling the symbolic thinking that built monuments and necessitated the invention of farming.